At this point I can get started on the bottom left and bottom right graphs, which was the birthdays in the last 3 months and birthdays in the next 3 months. And there are at least 2 ways to do this with filters. You can either add the filter to the graph directly, which I would like to avoid, or you can do the method here where I did the x-axis minimum and maximum, which is what I'm going to do because I don't trust, I guess, using these, and I don't know how to explain why I don't trust it. I think it has something to do with I'd rather use measures because measures are explicit, and also if I change here my first day of year is based on today's year, so if I wanted to see what it was like in the future, I could change one variable here. And the same thing with 3 months later and 3 months prior. These are based on today's date. So if I change one variable, I will change these two measures, which will change my graph. But if I use the filters here, then I have to remember to change them everywhere. And that gets super annoying for testing purposes. But actually, the graph itself is simple. It's the exact same as this one. I need the same x-axis and the same y-axis. I just need to change the minimum and maximum. So actually, if I was lazy, which I am, I can just copy this. And I'm not going to worry about making things look nice, like this is way too crowded. But that's not important. So all I need, because my y-axis is still tied to the maximum, which again doesn't care about the filter context. So if I had 2 birthdays in December again, then this would be 3, so that all of my graphs have the same y-axis. And this is just, actually I want to have that back, the extra row, so that you can see it. Because I think this, if you want to be a little fancy, you can look up the birthday paradox and look at what is the chance that 2 people share the same birthday. And I can give you a hint that it's about 22 people. If you just take 22 random people, assuming their birthday is distributed normally, like there aren't more birthdays in the spring or something, then you need about 22 people. And here I have 18 people. So there's about a 50% chance if you have 22 people that 2 people share the same birthday. That was a convoluted way of saying that. So it is fairly likely, at least in a company, if you have 40 people in one department, it's very likely to have 2 people that share the same birthday. And all of my point was that even though I will be filtering this graph, this x-axis, that means I won't be including the 3rd of December, then it will still impact my y-axis because that's how I've designed it. So the only thing I actually need to change with the 2 graphs is just the x-axis. Should not be the minimum and maximum. That should be the minimum in this case, because this is the past 90 days. That means my minimum should be my 3 months prior, and my maximum should then be today's date. Not today's year, that's not a date, today's date. Yeah. And here I also want it to be continuous and not categorical, because wow, that is ugly. And also that completely broke my x-axis because it doesn't want to do that. And here these are a little bit too thick for me, so I want to make them thinner, just as up here. But actually you can't do that for some reason. When you go into columns, there isn't the option to change thickness. You need to go up to change the type to categorical, so I can scroll down and say spacing should be changed. I don't know why Microsoft thought this was a good idea, and I don't think anything changed. I think they're thinner now. Yeah, so you need to go up and change the type to categorical to change the spacing, and then go back to continuous. And this is fine, I just need to change the title, which you can't just double click or press F2, you need to go into general and then title. And then I can say birthdays in the last 3 months. And actually I don't need the title here because that's apparent. And count up birthdays, I can go into the y-axis. And I should have done that before I started copying it. Title text, number of birthdays. And I'm going to copy that for this 1 and 2. yeah, number of birthdays and birthdays in the last 3 months, and then I can copy that and put it on the left. And again, I'm not bothering with making it look nice because I don't need to do that. I'm not presenting this in the next 3 months, and then I need to actually change the x-axis, and this time my minimum is then today. And here you can be a bit fancy and say, well, do you want it to be today or do you want it to be tomorrow? So instead of saying today's date, I could say that birthdays in the last 3 months is today, and then the past 3 months, and birthdays in the next 3 months could be tomorrow and then the next 3 months. And then we can see this is the 3rd of December. Yeah, and then there's something I want to do, which comes later, I think. Yeah, so now I have the 2 bottom graphs, and then I want my top right graph, which was birthdays in the current month, which should follow the same logic, but instead of having my minimum and maximum be based on today's date in the future and the past, I need more meshes. So you can see how quickly you end up having a lot of meshes, because I need basically now I need 2 meshes for one graph. So that was, I want the minimum date of this month, and actually because I know there will always be day 1 in a month, I could just be lazy and say date, the today's year, and I need to grab the month from today's date, and then I'm just going to say 01. So I don't have to find the minimum value because I know the minimum value will always be 1. And again, I don't want that to be date time. And then the issue with grabbing the max date is that I need to, I can't just say the 31st because they're a month with 30 days, and I can't say 30 because then I don't include the 31st, and February has problems. So I will be doing a trick where I actually calculate the first of the next month, and then I say -1. So to grab the 31st of August, I say I want to grab the 1st of September, and then say -1. So I will be copying that. And actually, since I already have calculated the minimum date this month, I can just add 1 month to this and then say -1 day. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So max date this month is to grab the E date, which lets me add exactly 1 month. So minimum date this month plus 1 month, and then I say -1 day. And I thought I could use the date add function, but I didn't need to do that. So I wasn't going to. So that is the 31st of 8, and then I can say, if I change the day's date to be February, February, then you can see that this will be the 28th. So now it's 28 of 2, and my 2 graphs down here updated. And this is a little confused because it's grabbing December 2022, and this is something I'll be fixing because I want this to say if there are less than 90 days, then it should always start on the 1st of January. So I will get back to that in a moment. But right now I want the top right graph to work. And here I ran into a problem when I made the graph, which you will maybe see if I change the today's date variable. But for now, I'm just going to copy it, and the problem forced me to use the filter here, which I would like to avoid. But it is not birthday in the last 3 months, it is birthdays in the current month. And here you could also be fancy and make a measure that grabs, that creates this text, because I have both, like if I wanted to say birthdays in August, I would create a measure, which I may as well do now that I'm talking about it, on the calendar, and say text for top right graph, which is equal to birthdays in, and then I need to grab the month of today. But notice how this says 1 and 12, and I need the text, which is why I didn't really want to do it this way, because I need to convert that into the format of month, but you can do that as well. So if I just say today's date, and then I can show how to do that. Birthdays in 8, yeah, so that's not useful, but you can use the format function. And my format should be MMM, I think. Yeah, 2/4 January. And then the problem is in Danish, if you use this function, you're going to get it with small letters. But that doesn't matter, I guess. But why is it saying January? Because this grabs a month, which is 1. So I actually need to grab not the month of today's date. I need to grab just today's date and say I want to take this value, which is a date, and format it as only showing me the month. And then that will show August. So then I can go in here and say the title should be, if I already forgot what it was called. Now it says birthdays in August. And again, if I change this to be February, then it will say birthdays in February. Yeah. So that is fine. First need to change the x-axis, which I forgot. So I wanted that to be the first day of month, minimum date this month, and the maximum date this month. And I ran into a problem here, which for some reason it wants to add the 31st of July, even though very clearly my minimum date is the 1st of August, and my maximum is 31st of August, but it's adding in the 31st of July, and I don't know why it does that. It's very annoying why it's showing up a wrong date. So my fix with my current knowledge is to go to the filter on visual and say my date should be a relative date in the current is in this month, and then I get this. And then I just need to say, yeah, so that was fine. So even though it says the 1st of August, it's actually relative. But now, of course, this graph isn't related to my today's date function or measure, which means if I change this for testing purposes, then this graph will not update properly. It will just be blank, which is annoying, but as long as it's just that one. And that's one of the many reasons why I don't want to use the filters. I want my measures to be based on as few variables as possible so I can change them. But now I need to go back and fix these graphs so that if my current date is not 90 days into the year, and if there's less than 90 days left of the year, then these two need to be different, which means I need to go back and change my measures, but I knew that. So what I want to do is for these two graphs, if my today's date minus 3 months, if that is less than the 1st of January of the current year, in other words, the minimum date this year, then I want my minimum to be the 1st of January of today. Otherwise, I want my minimum date to be the current date minus 3 months. And the same logic on the right here, except it should be the 31st of December. So since I already have my minimum date, not this month, I want the first day of year and last day of year. And this is just for visualization purposes. And then I need the 3 months later and 3 months prior. So I have my first day of year and my 3 months later and my 3 months prior. So again, I'm just going to make another measure which will then reference these measures, which is to say, so I'll just call this 3 months prior fixed, and I want to say that if my 3 months prior value, which is a date, if that is less than the minimum date of not of this year, first day of year, yeah, my first day of year, in other words, if it is in the past before the 1st of January 2023, then, and I actually should add that as a comment, if 3 months prior, then I want to say that I should return the first day of year, and if not, I should return my 3 months prior. In other words, if the date, today is less than 1st of April, I think, then it will return the 1st of January. But if it's the 1st of April of in the future, then it will do the right thing. So we can test this and say 3 months prior. So that is now the 29th of the 5th, which is fine, but I need to change today's date to then be another value. So I'll just make this be in March. So now we'll pretend that it's the 13th of March, which means that the 3 months prior is now in December 2022, which means it's less than the minimum day of the year, which means that 3 months prior fixed is now returning the first day of the year. And when today's date is actually in the, I think it should be the 1st of April, because then 3 months prior will be the 1st of January, which incidentally is the same date. So on the 1st of April, it will still give me the 1st of January, which is exactly what I want. And then I can do the exact same for 3 months in the future, but I'll just go down here and change the x-axis so I don't forget. So now my minimum is no longer 3 months prior. It is 3 months prior fixed. And then I can go back and change today's date to be, so now that gives me the 1st of January. It's a bit, yeah, it's only showing for January, I guess. So actually I might also need to, yeah, so now this graph will expand on the x-axis based on the day. So if I really wanted to, I could say that if my 3 months prior fixed value is equal to the 1st of January, then this value should be equal to 3 months into the future. But I don't think that makes sense because this is supposed to show the past. So I actually do want my x-axis to expand, even though it's ugly, because I don't want it to show March, because March hasn't happened yet when I'm in February. So I don't want to change the maximum, which again means that this x-axis will expand when you press update, but I can live with that. And then I need to go and do the exact same. So I can just copy the logic of 3 months prior fixed, but then it should be 3 months later fixed. So if 3 months prior, it is not that. If it is 3 months later, if that is then greater than the maximum day of year, which is last day of year. Yeah, if 3 months prior is in the next year. And I could say that if the year portion of 3 months later is greater than the today's year, so that's an alternative method. And I don't know which will be faster to run, but I think there aren't a lot of heavy calculations in this dashboard, so I'll live. But then it should return my last day of year, and otherwise it should return the later. Yeah. And then we can add that and again change that to short date. And this is a 29th of 11, so if I change today's date to be in October, then this should be the 31st of December. So I'll go down here and yeah, now it's showing the 3rd of December, and it won't show any values because I don't have any in the future. My minimum is still today. And again, I don't want to change the minimum because that should be today. So again, the x-axis will get smaller and smaller as I approach the last day. So that was 3 months later fixed. Actually, that's really ugly, but because I just have the empty values here. So when I'm in the last birthday in the 3rd of December, so that's really going to be ugly. If I say that this should be the 10th of December, then this will just be empty. That's really, really ugly, but it's the truth because there aren't any birthdays. And I don't think I can make a graph that will just be blank if I don't have any values. That might be possible, but that's way beyond my skills at this point. So that is fine. Now these two will update, and this one is fine. That updates based on today's date, but again, I have this ugly filter, which means that when I change today's date, this will just screw up because it has a physical filter, which is not based on the variable, it's based on the actual physical day, which means I am now done with my graphs and I still have to say when was the last birthday, when was the next birthday, who had the last birthday, who had the next birthday. And if there's a birthday today, I want to show the names. And that will be the next video. Yep.